Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cohesion Podcast. Today I'm joined by Elizabeth Baskin. She's the CEO and Executive Creative Director of Tribe Inc. She is a recognized thought leader in the internal communications industry and stresses the power of creating human connections through communications. Elizabeth has been featured in publications ranging from the Wall Street Journal to Fast Company, and she is the author of 5 books. And I'm super excited to get to know her better. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Shawn. So nice to be here.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been, we both know this from all the research on internal communications, employee experience. Like, trust is huge, and building trust is huge. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to get to know a person and demand that they be vulnerable in front of you. So I have some introductory questions for you to get to know you a little bit better.
Great.
Right on. Well, the first one is, what is your golden rule for work?
Be kind.
I love that it's straightforward and not like the long do unto others.
Just be nice. Yeah.
just be nice. What's an insult you've received that you're proud of?
You're shorter in person. People don't realize, and I don't know, you may think I'm 5'10". Who knows?
Yeah.
But then in person, I'm not.
I love that. It's a compliment.
Well, well, it's an insult, but
but you're proud of it.
Sure.
Yeah, you know who you are. And what are the top 5 most opened apps on your phone right now?
If I go through the day, it is New York Times, Duolingo, Starbucks, Peloton, and Find My Friends. I like to know everybody in the family is where they should be before I go to sleep.
Yours is that is so great. That so you guys that says so much about you. Like, so often it's
oh no, what does that say?
Well, no, in a wonderful way. Like, so often it's it's email, Twitter, New York Times, camera app, or whatever. But you've got Peloton, Find My Friends, Starbucks in there as well.
Yeah, Starbucks, definitely.
No, it's perfect. What was the one actually right after New York Times? That was the one that I loved the most. I can't remember.
Duolingo.
What are you studying?
I'm doing French this year. I did Latin for a year, and that was maybe not as useful as I hoped it would be.
Why Latin? Why did you pick Latin?
I always wished I had taken Latin in school, and I didn't. I transferred out of it into something else, like karate or something. So, because it was hard. But I don't know. I thought so much of our language is based. I thought it'd be very useful. I don't really use it day to day as much as I thought.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. Not a lot of people. Well, because you're a writer. You work with language a lot. Did you find some of that useful at all, or is it pretty much this stuff?
No. Well, they didn't get into a lot of what it was. The word for fish sauce was very prevalent. And I mean, it was not stuff that literature is based on. It was garum, and the French is much more fun to me.
Garum. What is a common myth about your expertise, about internal communications, employee experience?
The one that bugs me the most is that it's okay to set a lower bar for internal communications creatively. Like, that it's okay to use less talented writers and designers than you would on your brand advertising. For some reason, there is this myth that it doesn't matter if it's internal comms, but that's not our approach.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. They get, like, what I've seen is great writers, great communicators in internal comms in a big company are ripe for getting picked or poached into marketing, into
and brand,
into
external brand.
Yeah, like that's pretty Yeah, that is pretty common. I
Yeah,
have.
my husband and I both started our careers in ad agencies, and it took me a while to come around to pivoting to an internal comms focus at Tribe.
Yeah.
Because when I was coming up in the agency business, if you were really, really talented, you were in LA shooting a television commercial. And if you were not as talented, you were writing that company newsletter over there, but that was a long time ago. And I think internal comms agencies and creative the bar is so much higher now than it used to be. Thank goodness.
Well, tell me, like I want to talk about Tribe for sure. I love your website. I love what you're doing. We're peas in a pod, so to speak, on our philosophy
Yes.
on doing comms. But before I did, you mentioned that you started ad agency. So you started the external facing, the sort of the, I want to call it flashy or sexy, and that's not
Right. It
necessarily
is.
what it's like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why then the switch over to internal comms?
That is a longer story, but essentially, Tribe was founded as a creative branding boutique, and we grew very quickly, primarily because of one large flooring brand with really lovely people.
Yeah,
And we started doing actually magazine and television for them, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and it became 70% of our business.
hmm,
And our other clients were either Atlanta brands or UPS, Home Depot, Porsche, and we were doing internal comms for those big brands. And during the housing crash, our flooring brand couldn't pay their retainer anymore. So suddenly we couldn't afford this staff we had
yeah,
staffed up to it. So it gave me a chance, really. It was a disaster. It was awful. I had to lose a lot of people. I had to fire my personal trainer. I was late for a massage. I mean, it was really awful. Mostly because of the people that we lost, who fortunately all
yeah,
went on to do bigger and better things. But it gave me a chance to really reinvent and think what is the most interesting and also most profitable work we were doing. And it was internal branding for those larger global companies. So we made the commitment to, and this was very hard if you are the owner of a small business and payroll is looming and cash flow is squeaky. We made the decision to commit ourselves solely to internal comms and to turn down any work that was not. And so if somebody called us for some sort of external branding or marketing strategy or anything that didn't focus on the employee audience,
yeah,
we would, politely decline and usually refer them to a friend who we knew would do a good job.
yeah,
But what that enabled us to do, and the good fortune of having a much diminished staff, is that it gives you a little room to be lean, So it was okay.
yeah,
It was hard to turn down business, but we did, and that meant that we really were able to develop a deep understanding of this then very small niche of internal comms. So we
yeah,
would see the same kind of challenges, the same change management challenges, or the same engagement challenges, or the same internet challenges across industries, across cultures, and here we are. We did
yeah.
that maybe 15 years ago. We shifted to exclusively internal comms.
That is a big deal. At that time, I mean, it existed. I was working internal comms 15 years ago, but
Uh
not.
huh.
We definitely weren't talking. Or I mean, trying to pound the drum. But you're right from what you said earlier on the myth
Mm-hmm.
is there's not as much emphasis. You're not
Uh huh.
measuring the same way you do in marketing. You're not measuring
Mm-hmm.
the same way you do in advertisement. You're not thinking, hey, how can I say this in 5 words instead of
Right.
25 words? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
When
True.
you was the name of your company originally also Tribe,
It
or did you
was.
change it? That is so cool. Like I,
It,
that's
it,
that
it
is
is
so
weird, isn't
cool.
it?
Yeah,
But you want to know the real story of why it's
yeah,
Tribe?
yeah,
I had sold the agency I had started before, and I was freelancing a little bit. And my corporate lawyer said, incorporate because you're going to end up building a company. And I was like, okay, fine. And I made a list of names. And my former agency was named Match. And I like nouns for names. I had a book packaging company called Airplane. I like nouns. And I made this list of names, and I went to a designer friend who I worked with all the time. He's just one of the best designers in Atlanta still.
Yeah.
And said, which one of these will you do me a free logo for? And he went through that list with such disdain. It was like gazelle. Oh my God. And he finally got to Tribe, and he said, all right, I'll do Tribe, but it's not going to be Native American. I was like,
Yeah.
please, no, not Native American. That's not what,
Thank
no.
you.
Yeah, don't, please. And so the logo originally is when we were concepting together, and I would, scribble down what we were talking about. And if I liked an idea, I would do an asterisk and circle it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the original logo was that. And then it's evolved to something a little bit more standardized since then.
I love
But yeah, I should tell a better story about why it's called Tribe, but that's the honest one.
I love that the logo came from you circling things and putting an asterisk next to it.
Because that meant it was good. Good idea.
Yeah. And now it's an asterisk. I mean, that's what what I'm seeing on there. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and I can see, or I'm sure the listeners can see, like, okay, why would I name an external agency Tribe? That makes sense, because we talk about the influencers, we talk about these pockets of people that kind of do the same thing, and I don't know, the runners, creative people, whatever. But it fits so well
with what we do, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. Yeah, and what you try to accomplish with your clients and the stuff you put together. So, with that, because I've been lurking around on your website, but tell us what makes Tribe so unique in this space. I think you're already unique that you're an agency that does internal comps, because so much of that is just we hire a person, like we're like, hey, great, you got a liberal arts degree, we'll give you a job, lucky you. But you do it outside. What makes you unique in that regard, in having an internal communications internal communications focused company? What brings, I guess, the Tribe into it? Why hire you over just hiring a person to come on?
I think a lot of that has to do with our background in the agency world and consumer branding specifically, because we apply those standards of strategic thinking and creative work. So we grew up with good branding, and we try to do good branding. But I think also it's we talk about being a tiny global agency. We're a small group. We're very agile. It's not a lot of, with some clients, we're just sort of their internal comms department almost. I think it's ease of use. We're a convenient size.
Yeah.
We try to make it easy for our clients.
Yeah, you have on your website this list of like best practices. Like I hit the page, and there's beautiful art that you have all the way down. It's
nice.
These are
Thank
the things
you.
where you're doing exactly what you say you're doing. Like you could say, like, oh, we're really good, we think about ad agency, and then you go to the website, or you start to look at their brand, and you're like, oh, that's great. You're
that's
not
nice.
not quite there, but it's gorgeous, and the language is spot on as far as simple, clear, direct, funny, all the way through. And you've got like employment brand, employer brand, bad content, global employees, humanizing the CEO, tone of voice. Like every single one of these you hit. I send this to an internal communications person. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's my life, all the way through. Are there any of these, by the way, for the listeners as well? I'm telling you this, and I know some of you are thinking, this is going to be gated. Like, this is going to be a PDF that I have to download and give them my birthday and everything comes through.
No,
it's not
no.
at all. It's really great content, really easy to understand, not really long. It's just, it's wonderful, Elizabeth. Like, I love
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. What, out of all of that, though, like that you've seen, let's say in the past year or in the past 2 years, what what are the best practices or that you've seen that have been making the biggest impact within internal communications? And I know that that's broader. We say internal
Hmm.
communications, but it's bigger than that. But what would you give somebody advice if they had to focus on one thing to make the or three things to make the biggest impact?
I think it's one thing, actually. And I think the very most important best practice for internal comms is to recognize that employees do not have to read, watch, listen to anything you do. They don't have to. There's this expectation that they will read it because they're an employee and you're talking for corporate. No,
Yeah.
you're competing with Instagram and Hulu and whatever else. So you can't write a 700 word wall of text and email it
Hmm.
and think everybody's going to find that call to action somewhere in the 17th paragraph. It,
Hmm.
it just it You have to realize that you are not talking to employees in a vacuum. You're talking to them in this world of distractions and media onslaught.
Yeah. I I love that. You keep coming back to it, which is perfect. You operate like an like know what your competition for attention is, and your competition for
Uh,
attention isn't the other email that's going out or the
right.
other Slack message is going out. It's the
Uh,
world
it is.
that's competing for the attention on there. Well, let's shift gears just a little bit. There's for people that are listening, we're recording this in early April. U.S. jobs report came out, but it's showing trends that are happening around the world, and unemployment rate has dropped.
Mm-hmm.
We've added a ton of jobs, but if you look closer at it, that ton of jobs is not full-time jobs. Sit in an office, look at your intranet jobs like that. That is, sort of globally, it's people that have two deskless part-time jobs. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's folks that are only doing part-time, or a lot of people that are doing contract work now. And you wrote recently in Forbes about sort of avoiding this US centric communications, but you've also talked about the deskless workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm wondering, because this is selfish on my part, because I've only done comms for like the Slack organizations, the Teams
Yeah.
organizations, the
Mm-hmm.
ones where, I mean, it's still playful, still act like an ad agency, but I get them a little bit more captive in front of a computer
Right.
and
Yeah.
making
Yeah. I
these
was
things
going to say
happen.
they're more of a captive audience.
Yeah. So what are, I guess that's two sided because you could still get a captive audience globally, but I guess tell us more about how, uh, and you said this, like this, it's a mistake to just do it the same way across the board and to not focus on sort of a world centric view of
Mm-hmm.
things. So what do we do? Let's see, again, selfish. What do I do? What do
Mm-hmm.
I do to shift that? Because that's hard
Mm-hmm. It
for
is.
me to think about that differently. Like what are the ways that we shift that, or we should shift our thinking and the way that we do work to do a better job at that
Globally or to non-desk folks?
globally first.
Okay, globally. Well, we have seen this over and over and over, less so now than a little less so now than 10 or 15 years ago, but it's very difficult if you have a global workforce, but all your communications folks are in the US. It's really difficult to not have your communications be US centric because you just
Hmm.
don't have a sight line into what's going on in
Yeah.
India or Germany or whatever. So we've over the years developed a couple of different approaches to that we've used with clients ranging from Jeppesen, that's part of Boeing, to a locomotive manufacturer to a global cosmetics company.
Yeah.
And that is to form an editorial board of people in all those global locations and not communicators necessarily. A lot of times they're frontline people or admins or a junior level manager, but forming this board, this kind of team, and we usually will do a call monthly or quarterly that lasts 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And if we have, for instance, the theme of this month's publication is innovation,
Sure.
then we ask people on this call, can you think of examples in your location of teams or individuals who are, great examples of this? And they know everybody. So they come up with, I would never know that Pretty in the Chennai office, you just can't see it. So you need people who are on the ground. And those people really seem to enjoy it. They love connecting and sharing and making their teams visible. And that is like a little secret weapon. And we develop relationships with them. So if somebody drops out of something, we need somebody, one more person for this video. You can reach out to Pretty and Shania or whoever. And the other thing that I think is harder to do, but it doesn't require an agency or communications people to write and edit and shoot video and all that, is to train content managers or content creators. And we've done this with a big apparel brand and with a big unnamed gaming company. So we train people who are usually communicators in all these locations to train them on, some, just in case they're not professional communicators, on some basics of how to create an article or a video, and then also how to post it on the internet. So that relieves the load on the internal comms team because there are all these other creators. And, you could set up a system where it has to be reviewed, but there are people creating content all over the world then, and they are reporting what's going on in their team. So between those two, I think you can go a long way. One requires more agency help or more internal comms staffing, and one requires more trust, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're capitalizing on capitalizing. You're doing what is already happening publicly, where it used to be like reporter, and now, like, everybody's a content creator. Everybody's making things. Everybody a writer.
And that's so much easier. The content creating piece is so much easier now than it was 10 years ago because people do it in they do it.
Yeah. It's better than what I'm going to come up with half the time. Like I learned professionally how to do it, and then they'll put together a video really quick with their phone, and there will be cuts, and there will be zoom in, and there will be It's remarkable.
It's a whole new world.
We one thing that you mentioned about getting sort of together the editorial board, and you said you only meet with them for like 10 to 12 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. It is so efficient. And partly it's because we'll ahead of time say, this publication is themed around something, or we're looking for, we need a day in the life person in the Chicago office or the Paris office. And so they know ahead of time and they come with some ideas. And then if people are you've got to deal with time zones, people in India may not show up. I think we come very prepared and the people have had a chance to think about it, and it is just super fast.
Yeah. I think any chance you get, like creating an editorial board, and I think I've talked to other communication specialist people that do this, and they're like, why can't I get buy-in? Why can't I get people to do it? Why can't I get my CEO to do this? Why can't I? And half the time, my recommendation is you're asking way too much of them, like way too much time, way too much effort. And what is it that you really want? And the minute you said 10 to 12 minutes, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Like, of course they'll join. They want to have a voice.
We do the same thing with CEOs. When we are interviewing them or taping them, we'll schedule it for maybe 20 minutes and try to get done before that. So you just have to be prepared, focus, and then make it as easy as possible for them. Yeah. Because they've got other things going on.
Well, then the same question outside of the sort of the global side. What do we do? Because it's not just that it's a deskless workforce. Like there's a lot of stress, a lot of competition for time across the board within the industry. People that have 2 part-time jobs and they're deskless. How do you get to those folks that aren't going to be sitting in a computer? That they're not captivated. They probably never hear from the CEO outside of maybe an email that comes out
that they don't get because they don't have a company email.
That's right. You're absolutely right. I mean, you've got the contractors.
Yeah.
I guess not only how do we communicate with them, or what are sort of the best practices with that, but how do we affect? And this is kind of where we're going to be headed next, which I'm really excited about. But how do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them inspired? How do we like, or is that not our job? Like, it's like, hey, listen, you find it deep down in your soul, find out what the meaning in your life is, and then you do it. Or is there something that we can do as communicators and creators to affect that?
I think you can help with that. I think that we've interviewed employees of deskless, non-desk, technology, manufacturing, beauty, but all across. What comes up to me over and over again is that what is really engaging for somebody is if they love the work they do, if they are doing something that's exciting to them with people they enjoy, if they love the work. And energy drinks in the break room, or unlimited vacation, or even a really fantastic culture can't make up for, do they like their work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we can help with the culture piece, and to a lesser extent the energy drinks, but um, I think there's no magic way to engage people if they're not doing something that they're excited about. You can make it more meaningful maybe by showing how their role contributes to the success of the whole, or helps make the world a better place. You can help them see the career path for themselves. But if it's hard to. There's just nothing that outweighs hearing an engineer talk about how much they love solving problems,
Yeah.
or somebody in a manufacturing cell talk about how working with this team and making this thing, this chair or train or whatever, is just so like.
Yeah.
We work with a locomotive manufacturer, and to hear people around the globe on the floor talk about how they like what they do, they like that, but they also like knowing that they are helping move goods all over the world because of these. I mean, there's a lot to be said for feeling that you contribute to something larger.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, maybe this is even more of a personal question, but probably one that you run into professionally? Do you do you think that can happen regardless of the work? So if I'm at a fast food restaurant and I'm sort of like dipping fries back and forth, do you think that's also possible? Or have you talked to people that also are like, no, like there's meaning in this, like there's purpose in this, like I like
Oh,
doing this work
sure.
because of what comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's the classic NASA story of somebody asking a janitor at NASA, so what do you do here? And he said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon, while he's sweeping up, paper. But yeah, sure. And also, there's something to be said for, like, and I think one of my first jobs was at Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, which I don't think is in business anymore. And I loved it, not so much because I was feeding fried fish to people, but because we had a great that team feeling, and how much we laughed. And I mean, it was what, I did not spend the minimum wage I made at that job until I was in my, I think, third academic degree.
Oh
I saved all
wow.
that money, $2.65 an hour. But I think the work itself, tying it to something larger, and then really enjoying your team
Yeah.
are big pieces.
You remind me. I'm talking about the fish and chips place. Uh, it's just going into different types of coffee shops, and you can go into the one where you can kind of tell, like people aren't super happy, they're not engaged, they're like,
Hmm.
ah, man, this is a job.
Yeah.
Probably they have a bad. I mean, we know this from our work. They probably have a bad boss or owner or somebody that
Mm.
sort of like drills them. And then you go into another one, and it's a small party in there, and they're
Yeah.
smiling, and you feel like a family member, even though you've never
Uh
been in
huh.
there before.
Yeah.
Totally, totally different.
My son was telling me about a coffee shop in Brooklyn where you go in and there's a guy in the corner who will ask you something like, "So, do you believe in aliens?" And then the customer will say, "Well, yes and no." And then somebody else chimes in, and it becomes this big conversation about aliens or black holes or, whatever. But I think, that's part of it. It's that atmosphere. It's that culture.
Yeah. That well, it is, I mean, in that particular case, it is possible then. So moving into culture and talking about culture and how comms can affect that. Is culture more of this top down? This is who we are. Please behave appropriately. That sounds horrible. That's like a leading
Yeah, but
question. You know
yeah,
what my
no,
opinion is now, or
right,
is it
right.
more, or is it more of a bottom up, or somewhere in the middle?
I think it's all. I mean, it certainly helps to have leadership, a CEO or somebody else at the very top level, be very intentional about the culture that they want to see. But a lot of times, that C level and just below, they're all in the same meetings. They're hearing themselves talk. It's like they hear this radio station that nobody else hears.
Oh yeah,
So, the further away an employee is from the C suite, what we find generally is that they will have some clue, a little clue, zero awareness of what these white guys in neckties are saying up here.
yeah.
And that, I mean, a huge part of our work is figuring out what that gap is between what leadership's hope culture is and what employees' reality is, and then what has to happen to close that gap, to narrow it a little bit.
I love the radio analogy.
Yeah,
The
that's my husband's.
frequency.
That's
Oh, I
Steve
love
Baskin. Steve
that.
Baskin
Yeah,
original.
great. Thanks, Steve. Come on, Steve. Let's talk. No,
Come
I.
on.
It's no, that's so great. It's like if you can just amplify the signal, and
Right, right. Yeah.
yeah, like how do you or rebroadcast or syndicate it or something?
Or have a podcast where they're talking.
Oh yeah, yeah. That you can go like sort of
Yeah,
get the
because
message out all the way through.
it is the frontline people and the people in the rank and file have so much intel that C-suite doesn't know. They're I mean they create the customer experience. They see what the issues are. They're building the products. They see what the issues are, and there's just often not a real easy way for employees to share those opinions or ideas or concerns.
Well, and there's so much evidence that this diversity of thought and background makes a company more money. So if it's just white guys with neckties,
Yeah.
also the first time I've heard that before, oftentimes they can be out of touch as well. Like if a company makes more money based on diversity of thought, opinion, knowing who your customers are, there's just a lot of evidence that if those white guys in neckties have conversations, like it goes both ways.
Sure,
It sounds like,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We I guess sort of a follow up question related to internal communications with this is if you have a culture, I don't know. I think we just get these. You get a mandate from a new CEO or somebody coming in, and they're like, I want to have a startup culture, and we have 30,000 employees, or
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I want to be a culture of feedback, or like whatever it
Whatever
is.
it is, yeah.
Yeah. Is it possible to implement that? And I think it ends up being oftentimes, at least internal communications is spearheading that, or the
Yeah.
ones that are sort of like
Charged with that.
exactly
Yeah.
right. How do we do that? Is there something we can do to affect that, or to try to implement something like that, or is it a lost cause because a company has a culture anyways?
It does have a culture.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a lost cause, but I don't think it happens as quickly as people would like it to, or as that CEO maybe would like it to.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think we talk a lot about the eye roll test. Like if you say that, will employees roll their eyes?
yeah.
Like if you have a place that is working, everybody works 60 hours a week, and you say, "Hey, we've got great life balance," then employees are going to roll their eyes. But if you said, "Here you have challenging work that will accelerate your career,"
Mhm,
that is a little closer. But
mhm.
there when a new CEO comes in and has a vision like that, and that happens all the time, one of the first things we would want to do is talk to him and other or her. God, I can't believe I did that. Talk to her and her stakeholders, other leaders, and see what they mean by that, and then talk to employees in all sorts of functions and locations and seniority, and see how that meshes with their reality or doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
and what would have to happen for you employees for that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times the things that would close that gap are not internal communications; they're operational,
Yeah.
and we can't help with that. But
Yeah. Oh, come on. We know that we do. We wag the dog a little.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, I
That's
think
a
we can
secret. Yeah.
we can have an impact, but we can't successfully communicate something that's not authentic.
That's right. That's right. Well, you've mentioned that, and you use these keywords a little bit, but the like truth being one of these, or
Mm-hmm.
even the eye roll test. It sounds like it's a employees don't want to be lied to, and that's a way kind of to do it. If you say something like that, like, come on, like that's not 60 hours a week, and they're like, great, AI's here, do more with less. It's like,
Right. Sure.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing that happens.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, that's super interesting. I know from a lot of conversations, just don't lie to me. I'm an adult. Just tell me the truth
And
instead of
that's
trying to
the
make something up.
yeah, and that is change management is where that really, really comes into play. People we've done a bit of research with employees on how change is handled in their companies, and a lot of the research is dated, but I think it still holds. Employees want to know the truth as quickly as they can,
Hmm.
especially if it's bad news. I mean, if it's bad news, tell me sooner.
Yeah.
And I think, ironically, you can build trust in leadership by being straight about the bad news. I
Yeah.
mean, by all means, share what will be good about it. Share anything that will be a positive outcome.
Yeah.
But people need to prepare themselves emotionally, logistically, um, and I think there's a lot of times we see leadership having kind of a head in the sand mentality that if we don't talk about it, employees won't notice it.
It doesn't exist. Yeah,
And
they
that's,
won't know.
if there's some major change afoot, they're probably picking up on it ahead of time, and they certainly will know eventually.
Yeah.
And what happens if you're not communicating is that there's this vacuum that the rumor mill will fill.
Hmm.
And if you don't communicate, you're losing the chance to be part of that conversation. And 99.9% of the time, the rumor mill is worse than what the
Yeah.
truth is. So just tell the damn truth. Just let
Yeah.
them know what's going on. People don't like uncertainty, they want answers. Just give them the answers and share what will be better after.
Yeah.
But don't misdirect them about what's hard, the hard news.
Is it worth it? It's kind of a common question with mergers, acquisitions, layoffs, things like that, where people can smell it. It's just
Yeah.
that's the truth. Fart in a closet. Like they just have to see the CEO talk about earnings or talk about something, and they can
Yeah.
they can kind of tell that something's coming. Is it? And so a common sort of debate, head in the sand. And oftentimes they'll say head in the sand because I can't say anything. So head in the sand for legal reasons,
Yeah,
I
sure.
can't
Yeah.
talk about X, or for legal reasons, I can't talk about Y. Is it worth it just to say that? Hey, listen, yeah,
Absolutely.
something's going on. I
Absolutely.
can't talk about it.
I can't give you details. I will when I can. Or further down the organization, yes, there is a change in our organization, or how we're doing something, or we're looking at. There's something I don't know enough yet to tell you. When I do, I will.
Yeah,
It,
that's still
it's
transparent.
it's well, I think there are a lot of times you can't be transparent for business reasons, but you can be
Yeah,
honest. And there's a difference. But you can be straight with people, at least to say, I can't let you know right now, but I will.
yeah, yeah. Or even acknowledge what's actually happening.
Yeah, and that's another thing we come back to a lot is just treat employees like the intelligent adults that they are.
Hmm.
You're not a school teacher talking to children
Hmm.
who are also intelligent people, by the way, but just speak to them person to person. Don't
Yeah.
have, it doesn't, and that's something we preach a lot in terms of tone of voice for internal comms. Don't be corporation talking to employee. Just talk to them like you would talk to the guy you run into at the coffee machine.
That's right. The ones going to ask me about aliens or
Right,
or
right.
or
Yeah. Or black holes.
be that person that asks people about aliens and black
Yeah, why
holes.
not?
Yeah. That leads kind of to the final thing that I want to talk about. And you've got a lot of experience with this. We talked even before we got on the show. AI has been this super hyped thing, and everybody's talking AI, AI, AI. But you and I, when we chatted, it wasn't. We didn't go into details about it at all. It was that's great. How how do we connect with people at scale? This is the hard part. Human to human.
Hmm.
Because there's just so much evidence and so many studies that have come out. Like if you want to build trust, if you want to build trust to the point that when the CEO has to say, I want to tell you I can't, that they still trust the
Hmm.
CEO, they still trust their boss, they still trust the directors. How do we create that human to human connection, at and I say at scale because we know we can do it on our
Hmm.
teams with only 3 or 4
Right.
people, but how do you do that in an organization where you create it and people feel like everybody, I guess, respects me as a human or cares about me as a human, not just a machine in the cog?
I think that technology is really the answer to being able to create human connections that don't depend on being in the same room.
Hmm.
And that's something we have to do at scale now on a global scale. You have to, it's not just silos of who's in this building or that building, it's silos of who's in Asia, who's in Europe,
Hmm.
we have to, I think part of it is as simple as showing the faces and hearing the voices of people in all these different locations and hearing them, like it might be a video about the company mission, or it might be a day in the life. Here's what I wore to work. Here's what the weather's like here. Here's my dog. But being able to make those human connections so that you feel like the world is populated with people that you can relate to, like your global company is a smaller world. And
Yeah.
we have to depend on technology to do that usually.
You know, this reminds me of almost every platform. A really great intranet, simpler, a really great intranet, more than that actually, and or Slack. I've talked to people that are just like Slack first or Teams first as far as communications.
Hmm.
They sort of start and end there, unless
Yeah.
it's I have to send you to a policy, then I'll send you somewhere. They all have audio video capabilities, and I love what you just said on seeing a face, hearing somebody. I rarely see people use that. Just in a quick like message or send an update or just they type the message and hit send instead of just like record, yo, here's what's going on, here's the latest, talk to you tomorrow. That only takes 20 seconds. I'm wondering if that's is that something that would be effective, and it is. Why do people not do it? Why do people
Well,
don't use that
don't you see
technology?
people email somebody who sits 2 feet away from them, or teenagers in a room, like texting? I mean, they can start a relationship, conduct a relationship, and break up all with their thumbs. I mean, I think I think that it is more vulnerable
Mm.
to see somebody face to face.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of us boomers had to be, I mean, before COVID, we did not do video calls.
Hmm.
We had that Polycom in the center of the table, and all our clients were all over the US and the world. And everything happened on that stupid thing in the middle of the table. And it took COVID to drag us boomers kicking and screaming to turn our cameras on.
Yeah.
And I see the young ones. I mean, we have a lot of young people in our office, but I also am around a lot of young people because of our boys. And
Yeah.
I think like they FaceTime a lot if it's a relationship thing,
Hmm.
and they text more if it's transactional,
Yeah.
which is efficient, you know? I mean, I don't want somebody to FaceTime me to tell me the meeting changed from 11 to noon.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Not everything has to be a trust building exercise or relationship
yes,
building
sometimes it's
exercise.
just efficiency, you know, just share the information, do it.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the vulnerability on that, because I do think that that's probably a big part of that. And that's hard. I mean, it's cliche to say, yeah, Brene Brown's work, but it showed that creating a really great connection with the people who work for you or the people that you work for, or and I say it like it's a top down thing, work with across the
Right,
board,
yeah, sure.
is to be vulnerable, because that allows them in turn to be vulnerable with you, and then you're able to build something really, really strong.
And you're
So
able to collaborate, which is a huge thing for a hybrid or remote culture because it's hard to throw out ideas if you don't have a human connection with somebody. And it's, you have, because throwing out ideas is making yourself vulnerable. It might be a bad idea.
right.
But I think it is harder. It is one reason that building human connections across geography without face to face connection is so important now,
Hmm.
not just because we're more global, but because we're not, I'm losing my train of thought, but because that part of making a hybrid culture successful is still being able to collaborate.
Yeah.
And so those human connections are kind of the foundation of that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I guess forward thinking, what are sort of the big things on the internal communications horizon that we're going to see in the next few years? You think, is it going to be sort of the continue the same of what we've been talking about, or is there anything new that you're seeing coming up?
Well, I think AI will be interesting. I think the main trend that we see accelerating in our business, particularly, is this the need to make the world smaller, the need to create those connections across geography and silos and business function. And I mean, if you look at our business 10 or 15 years ago, we might be hired by a company with a global footprint, but it was
Hmm.
usually for the North American audience or specifically the U.S. audience.
For sure.
And now almost all of our clients, with the exception perhaps of a bank in Philadelphia, which is it is, well, they're in Maryland also, but primarily Pennsylvania.
Right there.
Um,
Yeah.
but all these other clients that we're working with, it's like, what is the day? Friday. This week we have had video conversations with people in India, Kazakhstan, Germany, Switzerland, Chicago, Philadelphia. You know, we're routinely seeing. I mean, we're interacting on a much more global scale, and the beauty is it is a more human to human
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. You hear that, Chicago and Philadelphia, like your countries.
Right, right.
We lumped you in there because it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
feel like that when you go to Chicago and Philadelphia.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What and I guess where would you point us to find out more about Tribe, to find out more about you?
Well, tribeinc.com. We have a modest social presence. And then personally, I'm Elizabeth Cogswell Baskin on all the socials. I've just started a personal blog as sort of a palate cleanser to work, which is loosely based on a book I did 15 years ago called Hell Yes, which is about how to say no. And so this blog is really about, you know, saying no to the things that don't light up for you and
Yeah.
aging well and the importance of dogs, living well.
So you
But
can
that's,
say hell yes to the things that you want to do.
yes, but you have to say no to the ones that
Yeah.
aren't meaningful so that you leave space for the hell yes.
No, I love it. Yeah. And so if you guys want to find out more information, tribeinc.com, look for the best practices. They're amazing that are on there. Yeah. And Elizabeth, thanks again.
Well, Shawn, that was great. Thank you.